Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
Welcome to Tiger Turf Talk. We're excited to be partnering with the Toro company to kick off an all-new summer series focused on their upcoming Grounds Leadership Academy happening in June. Over the next 10 weeks, we will be releasing podcasts following Drew's road trip to Minneapolis and back, where he will be meeting with grounds professionals across the country. Please join us as we talk about their careers, the properties they manage, and their favorite Toro equipment. This episode of Tiger Turf Talk is brought to you by the Toro Company. For over 100 years, the Toro Company has been a leader in innovative solutions for turf maintenance. Through a strong network of professional distributors, Toro proudly offers a wide range of commercial-grade equipment. Visit Toro.com to explore their full lineup of products.
Welcome back to the Toro Grounds Leadership Podcast Tour. We are here at the Allianz Field in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the sports turf manager, Mr. Ryan Moy. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for letting us come in. It's truly an incredible facility, so much going on. And it really, obviously, MLS has been an up-and-coming thing. What has it been like sort of coming into, again, Allianz and taking hold of what, again, Minnesota United really is?
It's been great. Like a lot of things in life, and we might get into this later, but came from the golf course side and spent over a decade there. And when you start something new, there's always some challenges that come up that
always.
This could be said for the rest of life, but there's new challenges and they're intellectually stimulating, but you're not sure if you have the tools in the toolbox to solve those problems. And so, for sure, from an agronomic standpoint, managing sun-loving plants and four walls and a roof.
The roof's fun.
Yeah, it's, very, very interesting. And just the process of building out the toolbox with respect to this new environment has been exciting, but also very challenging.
I love how you say toolbox because that really is just, there's so much more to it than just, the equipment you have, When it comes to that toolbox, what have you sort of seen become sort of such critical to sort of the management of, again, Allianz Field and everything that's going on when it comes to, a roof? People don't understand in MLS, you guys all have roofs usually, and it's just a whole nother level of chaos, microclimates, all these different things. What would you say has been sort of, critical in your toolbox to be successful like you have been?
Yeah, I want to try to be efficient in answering this question.
We got time.
It is a very much a question that is very broad, because I feel like, if I answer that off the cuff, it almost feels as if I have to put a filter on it a little bit because, something that you can say that might say to answer the question is really at the end of the day very specific to your location, right?
For sure.
And so if you say something, I'll send your pin to painting the industry and these stadium venues with a broad brush, and that's
for sure.
That definitely something that I want to stay clear of. But some of the big hitters, the low hanging fruit, I typically say from a tool standpoint. Well, one you need the baseline, right? You need in our case we have Toro equipment, which has been super beneficial, and that's just baseline.
Yeah.
And then you're still yet adding more Toro tools to your toolbox. But then some that really relate to growing grass inside four walls and a roof are, artificial grow lights, right?
For sure.
Whether or not you want to stick that hybrid technology, whether it's stitching or a carpet-based system into your toolbox, we have, and we can get deep into it if you want.
For sure.
With respect to an ROI, the hybrid surface was a game changer. Now, that doesn't take into account sites that host a lot of outside events,
Absolutely.
concerts, you name it. but strictly from a playing surface that's performing at a very, very high level and is consistent throughout the beginning of the year to the end of the year, that the hybrid system is what has been the most profound tool.
And that's hard to do when it comes to, it's very well known, like we said earlier, in the Premier League and in England and all those pitches for, again, FIFA. And I think it's coming towards, again, what the World Cup's happening and all that. What was sort of the decision-making process for you to put that system in? Because, again, like, you don't see it often. And I could be wrong. You can correct me here, but you don't see it that often throughout the United States. But it's definitely something that I think is coming when it comes to, you're looking at the World Cup and you get 5 sites that have no roof that opens up. So you're going completely inside in a controlled environment with no light. There's got to be some sort of hybrid pitch in there to make sure that throughout, what is it, like 3 months or something that the World Cup's happening. But like, again, what was sort of that decision? I'm babbling. I apologize. What was that decision-making process? And again, like you said, it's paying tenfold to have that, here on the field.
Yeah. The short version is really process of elimination. You can apply that to many, many things, but in this case, you're filling up your toolbox. You're applying some metrics to the performance of the surface, in this case the pitch, over a certain amount of time, and you still find yourself saying this can be better or should be better. And so as you start to add these tools, which are still useful, right? 100%. The worst scenario, our finance department would scoff at the idea of adding tools and then figuring out you can't use them and then they're sitting in the corner somewhere. But
just put a little box around them,
right? But so you start adding tools to your toolbox,
sure.
And you're getting incremental improvements, but you still haven't hit the mark that you should. And so you're sort of repeating that exercise, being cost conscious as well.
Absolutely.
But there are some fixed costs out there with respect to adding tools to your toolbox, and then you might distill like 3 or 4 different major investments into tools, and we can talk about those. But we can, into these tools, and so then you run the numbers on some of these tools, and in this case, you get to this hybrid surface, right?
Yeah.
And again, I want to repeat, we're at this point in time, we're not doing a lot of outside events on this surface, so we're still. We've committed to the hybrid surface, but there's still this learning curve with respect to hosting concerts and outside events on the surface. So I may say this was the most profound tool in the toolbox at this point.
For sure.
That definitely could change if we start programming it out. Right?
Don't everybody who has concerts just jump at this just yet.
Right,
but if you want to be the pioneer, what's so great, and again, you bring the golf side of things. Like whenever I talk to sports field professionals who are on the golf side, it's all about finding what's next and what that next big investment is going to be. That's going to be a game changer for you and your staff. Something that I love is just you, and again, I will bring up Travis, but always testing things, always doing something different, always trying to prepare for the next thing. It's 90 degrees outside right now, which isn't probably normal for Minnesota at this time of year. Am I wrong?
No, it's not abnormal.
Okay, so understanding things aren't always the same, and we have to be prepared for those things. Concerts might be coming in. You're obviously preparing with the hybrid pitch, understanding what's going to be the best way to sort of combat the challenges that come with that. What are some of the things that you focus on when it comes to making those decisions, making those larger investments, and really just having the best opportunity to grow your grass the way that you know and love?
It's a tough one for me because I got all this information.
I love it. Bring it on.
But could you maybe narrow it down a little bit?
Let's start with the investments.
Yeah.
What is your process to find the best investment for your sort of program and what you're doing?
It's a ton of research and networking and talking to colleagues. I think man, I could get myself into a corner here. I think there's 3, maybe 4 clubs in the MLS that have hybrid.
Okay.
So not a lot, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And you mentioned that earlier in the conversation. But I am fielding a lot of questions from my MLS colleagues to try to understand this. And I did the same thing. I tried to reach out to as many MLS colleagues as I could, but I reached out to the guys overseas,
absolutely,
our friends
the
over
ones
there.
that have just loved and perfected it,
understanding
really.
the nuances between their business model and our business model, their season and our season, their concert season, our concert season / MLS season.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So it's all nuanced, and I have a colleague in Green Bay who has hybrid, and he was a major help to me in gathering all this information. And then the next step is really just looking at the numbers. You have all these reference points from, I say tools, but equipment, right?
Yeah.
You have all these reference points, and then so where does this investment fall into the category of investment? And at that point, you don't know what the ROI is necessarily, but you're probably 90% there, knowing with respect to, is it going to give you X return? You're 90% there. So there's maybe a 10% risk assessment there that you have to do.
Usually is pretty good in business, right?
Yeah. But I think my hat goes off to, our industry, the people that make themselves available to share information, especially now, that's really what takes that 10% down to maybe, single digits.
And that's awesome, because again, we talked about it, like, just people in this industry want everyone to be successful. There's no competition in the way of, like winning a championship or something. It's always about how to make all of us better. And I know you do a lot for that. Talking with Boyd and everybody at Toro, the work that you do is incredible. And something that I am curious about, and we sort of talked about it, is your tenure in golf and the time that you spent, at Hazeltine and all those places. What would you say have been some of the big aspects of your time in golf that you've brought over to Allianz and created this, again, incredible pitch that, again, people see on national television all the time, playing MLS games and all that? What has been sort of the main focuses that you brought from the golf side to the sports field side?
Yeah, I think an easy one to pull out of my experience there was I happened to work at a club that was hosting major championships. We host the Ryder Cup in 2016. So just that exposure to I'll say high level conditions or professional level expectations. And by the way, there's so much more to me than just professional golf.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And when I say me, just like, I feel like, talking on behalf of like my industry colleagues, like we're all the same, you know,
sure.
but the exposure to that and understanding sort of this kind of oxymoronic, but this quantifiable metric, if you will, like, what the expectation is and carrying that expectation over to this environment. And I think really that's how we got to hybrid, is, hadn't I had that exposure, I may have found myself in a situation where I was like, oh, this surface is fine, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's what paid dividends for me, is having that experience on the golf side.
Absolutely. And again, with everything that you have going on, there's just so many different aspects of when it comes to managing a field. There's also the aspect of managing people and understanding that your crew is sort of an extension of all the work that you're trying to accomplish. What has been sort of your goal here at the club, just developing where it is today, in the past 5 years, 6 years?
5 years.
5 years. In the past 5 years to get where you're at today, again, incredible setup. Everything that I've seen has been absolutely beautiful, to hosting. I mean, the MLS season is so long. I realized that a couple of years ago when I started talking to MLS groundskeepers. I was like, I didn't realize that it ran this long. What has it been like, again, developing that crew, and how your leadership has played a role in that?
Yeah. And I will undoubtedly get into more of this and
Oh, yes.
like this week.
We will, for sure. Just a couple panels,
yeah,
you know.
with respect to the Leadership Academy.
The word leadership might get old by the end of the week, but yeah.
But just kind of a, definitely a short version of my approach. And maybe it's better off if or more efficient if I talk about just my general sentiment going into building out a team. And
Absolutely. That was my next question. So perfect.
And again, I have, by default, I have to reference my previous experience, right?
Yeah.
And that was, if you have a fixed amount of intellectual capacity, motivation, fill in the adjectives there with respect to building out your team and working with the team, and you hire your team, and then there's an evolution to it all, and that fixed amount is spread over a large amount of people. I think, and I don't have to go any further than that, but there's less of you to go around, and that's what I mean. I knew that right away going into this. My team is going to be small.
Yep.
And we are more of a precision approach to executing whatever we had as far as our responsibility goes. So when you carry that over, let's talk real numbers here. Went for managing, on the higher end during the summer was, between 30, maybe sometimes 35, 40 people, from seniors to have been retired all the way down to kids who don't have their driver's license. So an eclectic set
my
of
kids.
age groups, but and then coming here and essentially working with 3 full-time assistants. We just hired another one, and looking at that evolution and sort of mapping that out with more precision has been my general sentiment and my approach. And I do think that it's worked out quite well. And that's just a product of my experiences, right?
Yeah.
So, and then there's a whole, many hour-long conversation about, getting into it and how do you tease out some of these, strategies, and how do you can talk about interpersonal communication. You can talk about goal mapping, right? All these different things, and I'll just kind of leave it at that, but that's just my general
I might go back into it a little bit, but
go
I mean, there are so many things that people don't understand about when it comes to communication, goal mapping, all those things that you're mentioning. What are some of the things that you have found so critical to being successful here when it comes to not growing your staff, but understanding that, your trust in the staff is vital to, again, the goal of having the best crew and field possible? What are some of those things that in those tools that you use for specifically, maybe it's professional development, or maybe it's just building, again, a family within that workspace? What has it been like for you?
I'm pretty hard-nosed on this one. It's 2 words.
I love it.
Intellectual stimulation.
Yes.
That's it. We can end it right here. So
perfect.
But, no, and that's really what has been it. People ask, what's the key? I don't think there is one. Intellectual stimulation is at the top, 100% at the top. I've asked. I tend to gravitate towards talking to older people in general in life. But I've had conversations both above from an age standpoint, right? And so much of it, the failures and successes within someone's career, not even right?
Yeah.
But it has so much to do with intellectual stimulation. I don't want to discount compensation, right?
Because yeah.
I think everyone would say that's listening to this that we could use
plays a role.
Yeah, we could use some progress or evolution in that space. But when I think about the conversations I've had from people, mentors, about successes and failures in their career, the conversation didn't surround dollars and cents. It was intellectual stimulation, right? and then that the antithesis of that would be complacency,
Yeah.
right? So that's the main driver in how I approach our operation.
And honestly, when you talk about things like that, you're talking about sort of empowering your workers to understand what goes through your mind when it comes to making decisions and having them be a part of that process. What have you seen in your guys and gals, if you have one, sorry, that you've seen the growth and their sort of careers and where they've been and how they've come to this point where some of them might be ready to take on a full-time thing in the MLS or something else that, again, you've helped prepare them for. What has it been like sort of being that mentor, and what has that meant to you?
You teed that one up for me. Not to say that's an easy one to hit, but
I tried to.
it's funny how I don't perceive myself as a mentor to my employees, which is a weird thing to actually verbalize right here on the spot. I think of them as colleagues, as teammates.
Yeah.
And so I don't, whether that's right or wrong, I don't even know. But I actually am verbalizing it for the first time. Like,
I'm the same way with my students.
Yeah.
I don't see them as a mentor. They're kids that I'm trying to just help guide them down this path. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I mean, for sure, like, they're just by the way business communication is structured, that will come to me with questions and we'll talk about them. But yeah, it's just so much more of this sort of team, like colleague, hey, whatever. Life is all about like identifying problems and then solving them, right?
Yeah,
And that's really the exercise we're doing all the time. And the conversation is so much about a back and forth and this like colleague to colleague, as opposed to me giving them like some profound advice, which I don't put myself in that category.
That short little
right?
video of you just giving a montage of incredible. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's.
So what comes with that, and again, we're on these panels this week about leadership and everything that's going into the Toro Grounds Academy. That lends to sort of your leadership style. How would you define your leadership style when it comes to, again, ensuring the best product for your athletes, accomplishing everything that your front office wants, while at the same time growing you and your staff throughout that whole process? What kind of leadership style are you sort of using in that sense? Obviously, having a good relationship is big, but there's a lot to it. And again, I totally understand what you mean by it doesn't really click in your head sort of like, I'm not being a mentor right now. It's more of, I'm just trying to do the job with these individuals that, again, I see as peers. So what would you say your leadership style is in a sense, if that's I'm sorry if it's the wrong wording, but
gosh, it's so cliche, sounds so cliche, but so I was going to say progressive.
okay.
But I actually don't think it qualifies as being progressive. I don't know. I'm not I'm not the guy who's looking for new ways to do things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, that might be like a shortcoming of mine. Because if you're not actively looking for new ways to do things,
Mm-hmm.
right, then maybe you're falling behind a little bit. But I'm really try to be very present and sort of like introspective about the whole thing. So not introspective to myself, but if we talk about
situations,
if we talk about the collective staff as being one entity, trying to be introspective with respect to that entity, and trying to gauge and feel the visceral sort of aspects of what might not be going so well. What are some problems that we can't solve? What things are going really well? And that's just like a continuum. It's not like I set aside any specific time to do this. It's just this continuum, like mental track and position that I've taken. And there's some other adjectives that I would throw into there as far as like my style.
Yeah.
It's very, there's a lot of protectionism. Very if there's any tough conversations with respect to managing up, I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it because in a sense, you're protecting your own staff.
Yeah. Which goes so far.
Yep.
It's not even funny how far that goes. So that's awesome.
I like to think that I'm more of a, strap on your boots and put on your work gloves, if I have the time, because I don't, not going to speculate on my other colleagues, but it's like, that's why we got into the business in the first place. We
didn't go for the office, right?
It wasn't to get behind a computer and create spreadsheets. So, as often as I can, I really try to really get out there. And I personally do some of my best thinking when I'm on a mower, or
you just hit the nail on the head.
Like that.
It's my happy place. That's where I get to think about how am I going to deal with the day? How am I dealing with kids in a certain way that, again, makes their education better, and understanding that, sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes you're having a bad day. Sometimes I need to figure out how to fix my approach. Why is this kid having more struggles than others? And there's 200 of them, so it's kind of hard to keep up with them. But like you said, those are the things that you love, and that's why we do it. So it's incredible. So
you had mentioned something earlier on about the idea of a full-time staff member getting to a point where they're ready to move on. And I this comes from my golf course background, but you're not wrong.
Yeah.
In posing the question like that. But being an assistant for so long, really, I was motivated to sort of shift the conversation a little bit about, like, there's very much so when we get out of school, this like trajectory, this career path, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're climbing the ladder, and you might get to that second to top rung, right? And then there is this sort of general sentiment that, what's next? You should be moving on,
mm-hmm.
or you're definitely ready. Like, you should be moving on.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to create an environment in this role, or I wanted to be able to influence the culture in which my employees worked in,
mm-hmm.
That had to do with creating a landing spot if in fact someone wanted to stay,
obviously,
right? If they want to move on, that definitely nurture that process.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
But that there was so much of like, what are you doing next? What are you doing next? But in many other industries, it's okay to be at the second rung, and I don't even like to describe it like that. But guess what? If you're happy and you're intellectually stimulated and you feel like you're compensated well enough, then guess what? I want to work with you until
the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
and it's funny because, like, in my time, I mean, when I was in the MLB and NFL, I always wanted to be a head groundskeeper in the MLB just because I was a baseball guy. It was something I wanted to do. But during that time, like, I kept finding out, it's like, there's so much pressure that you don't understand that they go through to ensure that those fields are ready. Like, you are ready for an MLS game any given time. Like, I want to be a part of the process. I want to be there. I want to be on the field. I'm one not to really be behind a desk, even though I'm a teacher now. But like, it's not wrong to want to stay at that second rung. Sorry, but it is. And again, to all those head groundskeepers and sports field managers out there, I give you guys so much props, because there's so much that you do that we don't understand or see. Like dealing with the front office, dealing with the other things. Obviously, your assistants make connections and whatnot and meet the people up there, but it's not a daily thing, and it's not, the need to be in contact with your ballpark ops or stadium ops or whatever it is to ensure that there's cohesiveness throughout the whole sort of system of, Minnesota United. Something that I do want to touch base on is what has it been like working with your front office and sort of creating that cohesion among the entire club to ensure that you're getting the needs that you have to put out the best product? What has that sort of been like developing that over the past 5 years and making it to this point?
The only thing that I can bring to the table with respect to responding.
No, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want
No, but I do think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Is I was brought on to a club that was new and that was developing themselves. So that extensive early growth phase, we were all part of.
Yeah.
And I think that lends itself to really kind of pulling back the curtain and reducing those barriers when it comes to like front office and like ground specifically. But I would say the business as a whole, for every single department within this organization went through this massive growth phase together, and we were all learning together. So that in the end, it actually created a culture of equality.
And that's awesome. Because that's hard to do, when you're talking about professional sports teams.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'd really like to hear from Tanner.
He's coming out. Yeah. In Colorado, right?
With Colorado.
Yeah.
And, he's been to some different clubs and has so many great experiences.
Started at Austin, I think, when they first started. So
Real Salt Lake before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think he's going to be a great person to hear from and to compare my response in, this sort of startup, if you will, to an individual who's moved into clubs that have already been established. And then how does that have an effect on your communication?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, the Toro Company, and their Workman UTX. The Workman UTX is tough and dependable with the highest payload in its class, rugged design, powerful performance, and unmatched versatility. It gets the job done without compromise. Visit Toro's website to learn more. So I do want to sort of shift, Allianz, you being here at the ground level, like you just said, what has been sort of what you've built into the system and the field itself? If you can give us sort of like a rundown of the facility on when it comes to the field and everything that you have here that you wanted to make sure that was there in order to have the best product and sort of the best start to, again, something that, again, is so beautiful and incredible. The stadium is awesome, driving up and having sort of, I think it's one of the more open routes. I could be wrong in the MLS from what I've seen, but sort of what was sort of your step process, and you have to go all into it, but like building from the ground up just to this point where you're at now.
Yeah. So to be clear, I was, I think like a lot of individuals that are hired in my role are hired on later in the construction phase. I know a few colleagues who were hired on very early on because MLS is growing, and I think that there was some awareness of having the groundskeeper on from the initial stages of planning. But there's a individual by the name of Trey Rogers who was
Michigan State
hired on
great man
on this project, and
he just did St. Louis too. I think.
He did a fantastic job in educating the decision makers and consulting. So you hit all the basics, right? You've got a 10-inch profile. Ideally, it's 12. You've got a heating system because you're in the northern climate. Although,
gotta love the 90 days.
I think some of my southern colleagues would also say, "Don't say that," because I'm trying to get a heating system, but for the shoulder seasons. But so you have all these bases. The USGA construction. Right? I had some grow lights, early on. There's some things with respect to, powering these units and where you locate the power sources.
whole other aspect a lot of people don't get. So.
Yeah. But I think the one thing that I really take pride in, and kind of go back to the toolbox and, Toro, and, I made the decision to fill my toolbox up with Toro equipment.
Yeah.
And it was very close to being a one-stop shop with Toro, right? And so that was really nice to be able to, have nothing and build it out with this company. Obviously, they're in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It does make it very convenient. There is probably one thing with respect to stadium design and architecture that I don't think, from what I know, I don't think the groundsman really has a seat at the table.
No, it's hard too.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you see it, you're like, oh, you got just a little bit less,
Right. We talk about roof lines. I mean, MLS in this case they've set new parameters for, with respect to the fan experience. But I would have, I enjoy working with this company. One being that I do have a seat at the table. And I've been very strategic in nurturing that and protecting that. I would have liked to have been hired when they were in the design phase.
And I think that's so critical because it's not just like professional stadiums. There are so many times where a field is constructed and no one with the background in turf grass is ever consulted. And there's 75 things that you have to change after it's constructed that are like necessary fixes. Like I'm going through it with a high school back home. I just had to do a write-up for a not full field renovation, but really it needs a full field renovation. We were taking care of their field aerating. We broke a bunch of tines. We broke 12 tines off of 648 on their infield in 2 passes. So we went digging. There's just boulders, not just small rocks. Like we couldn't find the edge of a rock. And I'm like, so I wrote this long, expensive, and I keep saying, sort of fix for them. And it went to our county. And they're like, you're sure this is like the bare minimum? I was like, this is below the minimum. This is what I know you will do, because if I go any higher, you're not going to do it. So I think that's so critical. And again, I don't know how to do that when it comes to, again, stadium constructions. Like, how do you get in the room? But yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you with that.
No, but I think that's really the first question to ask. And then, like I said before, life's all about identifying the problem and then coming up with a solution. Well, you're halfway there. You know what the problem is that you don't have a seat at the table. So find a solution.
Yeah. Which I'm always curious to see what that solution is going to be. But one of the interesting conversations at Salt Lake was DeMarie Smith with, were you at the annual luncheon?
No, I wasn't.
At SFMA?
No, I wasn't.
So DeMarie Smith is the NFL Players Association rep, and he was bringing up all these different things that we could do, and I'm like, all right, so who's going to do it? So that's honestly what it is. Because when you're talking about sort of the livelihood of our, members of SFMA and telling them, hey, we need to take a step back, whether it's like we're doing certain things or being a part of something, how does that lend a hand to getting that seat at the table? So yeah, something we don't need to get into, but I'm fascinated with what those next steps are. You sort of got into it with your toolbox with Toro. Yep. You guys have a very unique setup for when it comes to the Toro company being a partner with the club. Is that correct? Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. What was that sort of process like? And again, them being sort of the hometown, industry, I can't think of the word. I guess company. I guess that's the right word. But what was that process sort of like, and how has that sort of been throughout the 5 years of, again, the club being up and running? That was a terrible question. I apologize for that.
It's a great question. But do you think we can defer that question to Boyd? And put him on the spot.
I'm going to ask him the same thing. Yeah.
Because I think a partnership is always a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have, our side, Toro has their interests, and I do think that from the inception and the evolution of our partnership, that it's become a very, very positive experience for both parties. What I will say personally, I guess I'm going on the record for this.
So, sorry, I can get rid of it if you need me to.
Your choice. I think that we are going to make it a better partnership than they have anywhere else.
That's awesome.
And that's my personal
I think that's
opinion.
a great record
and,
thing to
and
have on.
for those people who say that it's not going to be that, I accept the challenge.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. The easy ones, aspects to this partnership is that they're in the neighborhood.
For sure.
Right? But I don't necessarily want to speak for Toro. For us,
for sure.
And for me specifically, I can't, I go back to my previous work experience.
Mm-hmm.
Our toolbox was filled with red equipment over there too. So coming, man, how many times have I said toolbox here? But coming,
I love that. That's so cool.
Coming over to sports turf and this metaphorical toolbox, just like, you think about being a skilled labor and you're carrying your toolbox around, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of my metaphor.
Yeah.
Is like, you closed up your toolbox at your previous employer, picked it up, brought it over
bring it
here,
with you,
and then you open it up and you start adding tools to it. And, now you start to realize, well, you're really executing at a very high level. So that's really, for me, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with Minnesota United, but that transition was so easy. I didn't have to learn new platforms. I didn't have to learn new controls.
I hear you.
And especially, I want to say this because I'm actually pretty proud of it. We had 2 full-time mechanics back at my previous job.
Yeah.
We don't have a mechanic here.
Yeah.
So we have to wear that hat. We're all familiar with Toro. They make it so easy. And their distributor, their local distributor, is very easy to call up and have them service a piece of equipment that we can't manage ourselves. So long story short is it's all pretty intuitive having had Toro in the toolbox before.
Absolutely. Now, something that, obviously comes with Toro, it's something that you can count on. They do a phenomenal job. Like you're saying, it lends your hand to being your own mechanic in a way, the best you can. There's certain levels that I'm the worst mechanic in the world, and I can still do a little bit of stuff, What have been your sort of favorite tools in your toolbox that are Toro, that have been an asset to your job here at the field?
Yeah. I'm not going to deep dive into this.
No,
but I will say something that I just feel so good about with respect to their product offerings and product lines. I wasn't fortunate enough to dabble into the RCL, residential commercial landscape.
Gotcha.
Product line prior to taking this job. So you have golf and grounds.
Yeah.
If I'm wording that correctly.
Yeah.
And then their RCL line, and I'm like, I'm going in the RCL line, going, wow.
There's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, and in fact, I've been talking to my golf course colleagues and this. Did you know this piece of equipment existed? And
some blowers and stuff that you're like, wait, what? Where did we could be using that for certain things? So
it's not, and I want to be clear about this. It's not that the salesmen that are hitting the pavement out there in the distributor space aren't doing their due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
They are. It's just that us turfgrass managers get, I think, tunnel vision with respect to equipment options and stuff like that. So it's just like it was just great to just explore that aspect.
And it's so cool because again, you're looking for new things that can have an impact in your toolbox that will make it better. What are, again, it sort of goes with the tools that you're using. What would you say are some of those, and again, another shift of those cultural practices that you're focusing on with the hybrid system, with your sort of climate? Obviously, it doesn't get too hot too often up here, and you have pretty harsh winters. What is sort of those cultural practices that you're focusing on to get the best product throughout the start of the season to the end of the playoffs? Like, what are you focusing on?
Focusing on
Culturally speaking.
Yeah. OM management, specifically, organic matter management.
Yep.
And it's this. I'm going to take a stab at this. I haven't described it like this before, but
Okay.
like a cup of water.
Yeah.
And like a clear glass. I mean, even a measuring cup or something like that.
gotcha.
Just think about that.
Got it.
And think of the water as your OM, right?
Yep.
It's filling up. Well, when you install a hybrid system, your success is really determined based off of that OM. Because let's just say them just throwing general numbers out there. Let's just say after you stitched a surface, or you had synthetic your synthetic fibers had exposure of 1 inch. OM starts to build up. Now you're maybe at 3/4 of an inch. Now maybe at a half an inch at the end of the year. And if you keep letting that go, you're not in a terrible spot.
Yeah.
If your exposure is at half, but if you keep letting that go, then you can get yourself in a very precarious situation where your exposure of the artificial fibers are too small, and now you have to do something incredibly invasive. Now, a lot of people, when they dig into artificial surfaces, they're going across the pond and looking at our neighbors.
Yeah.
And the reality their business model is such that they have a concert season, and they do a full, what I have termed now,
Full
a full renovation,
yeah.
right? Get a completely new surface outside of the artificial fibers. In the instance of a carpet-based system, now people have two carpets, one that's growing at a nursery, and then one that they're using is across the pond now. But go back to this exposure thing. So what we're trying to do now is take the business model of our friends across the pond and tinker with it.
Yeah.
And the first step in tinkering with it is, I'll compare irrigation scheduling, right?
Gotcha.
How long people are deep and infrequent. So we're going to take this one major renovation a year model and break it down. So we're going to go less aggressive, but more frequent.
Gotcha.
And we're working through that. And hopefully we provide a blueprint for some of my colleagues, not only in MLS, but other sports too, that can be viable. But so far, it's been very successful. And then again, once you inject a concert, or some other outside events, and now you start dealing with a whole another set of problems that you would have to
challenges, all the fun stuff.
Yeah. But that's and I'm not covering everything.
No.
Because
that's something so unique to the hybrid system. We again at a high school level, we're not gonna have a hybrid system. People at collegiate levels are starting to maybe look at it in the pro level. I mean, you're seeing, like you said, 3. What are some of those limitations that you've sort of seen from past, experiences on golf and non-hybrid pitches? What are some of those things that sort of been maybe retracted or taken out of the toolbox because of that hybrid system? Would you say that you wish you could do?
It's a fantastic question. Core cultivation, that's a major one, right? That's such an easy one to pull the trigger on. If you're non-hybrid and you need to have an impact on organic matter, right?
Yeah.
Core cultivation is a nice tool. I think that, well, let me go a little bit further.
Yeah.
Dilution can also be another tool with respect to top dressing, right? Some finding a way to integrate more sand into the profile if you have high organic matter, and the wait till that cart goes by. But another benefit of top dressing is that it has a leveling effect, right?
Yeah.
We see that on all different surfaces. So, sand is still in our toolbox, but it's not the amounts that we're talking about previously.
It's not the levels in which, say an MLB team, every homestand is core, remove sand, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking dustings.
Really?
Yeah.
Very nice.
If we are even top dressing. We just finished our first mini renovation.
How did it go?
It went really, really well.
That's awesome.
And we decided to recycle the material. So we worked up a lot of the organic matter out of that surface with verticutting and springtime raking, and brushing. But we were able to separate the OM and the debris from the sand, and recycled the sand back in. So
very nice.
I think we feel pretty good about that. I think maybe the one thing that we're taking a hard look at is how much POA do we have after this process.
Gotcha.
Long term. But then you also have to think about what is the lifespan of a hybrid surface.
When's the
right?
next hybrid stitching that you need to do?
And I think these guys that are doing a lot of sodding, as far as their business model goes, they're probably doing it the same way. Like, you're not gonna, if you're sodding every year or twice, I don't even know. Some people are sodding like
4 or 5 times.
a year,
Yeah.
right? You're not gonna chase POA.
No.
And that's like, I mean, if you want to call that a benefit to sodding.
It's a give and take.
Yeah. But like, let's just, I think the cut sheet or the sales pitch on our hybrid surface was 10 years. If you maintain it appropriately.
Yeah.
10 to 15. Well, work backwards from there.
Yeah.
And if you're taking metrics on your POA populations, if you are okay, everybody wants zero POA, but let's just move on from that.
let's live in reality, right?
But like, if you're like, you run the numbers, and if in year 9 or 10, your projections are such that you have a tolerable amount of POA, maybe you don't chase POA.
Yeah,
right?
if it's working, why would you? You know, there's no reason to.
Right.
It's just an added cost, I guess, factor in the sense of like what's working for you. If you're chasing POA, maybe something else is going to also diminish with that sort of chase, in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yep. How about human capital?
It's very true. I remember when I was in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, we had a training camp site where one of the fields we completely removed, and we moved Heinz Field to the practice facility because the field was still in great shape at Heinz. So we moved it to the training camp site. But the second field, there was a lot of POA. It had to be like 1,400 hex plugs from that field. So like, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what type of turf are you growing, just to be sure? Like, again, I can make assumptions and stuff, but what are you sort of focusing on when you're growing?
We are Kentucky. Started with 100% Kentucky bluegrass.
Gotcha.
That was what we were sodded as, and then we stitched. So we stitched a year ago.
Gotcha.
Last year I was overseeding with perennial ryegrass at a pretty heavy rate. Although no one could tell this spring, anyone who was not a turfer, I wasn't happy about the performance, the overwintering of the perennial ryegrass.
Gotcha.
Like, wow, surprise, right?
Yeah.
I mean, perennial ryegrass is not going to,
sensitive.
Yes, it's sensitive. So, but I thought we had an edge on it because we have field heat, we have grow covers.
Yeah.
But I wasn't super happy about that.
Gotcha.
So, okay, here's a problem. Here's a solution, right? I've pivoted from perennial ryegrass, and we are overseeding a broadcast overseed with Kentucky bluegrass,
Gotcha.
and we are spike seeding roughly the same time.
See, like that. That's the stuff that you don't think about, you know. And you probably brought that over from golf. Am I wrong in saying that?
Not wrong.
Yes. So like those are the things that like, because you're talking about the overwintering, there's not gonna be a problem with that with the fine fescue. Like that's so, you know, intuitive and thought provoking when it comes to like completely like blowing everyone's mind. It's like, wait, what? You know, like that's not something that's standard practice. So I think that's incredible, you know, and that's just awesome to have in the toolbox, obviously.
Yeah. Well, if we do a podcast again, write this one down. I'll maybe report back on my findings.
Okay. We'll do it in a couple of years or in a year. We'll do one right now. This time of year after the winter. How is the bluegrass perform with the hybrid stitching? Because a lot of the hybrid that you're talking with over the pond, you have ryegrass, 100% ryegrass. How is it, and you talk about organic matter and managing that, how has it been sort of seeing this first year with the hybrid and the bluegrass? How is it done when it comes to performance and your small renovation when it came to recovery and all that?
Yeah. I'm gonna speculate here, but it's an educated speculation.
Always.
I don't know if I've ever heard that word.
I love it.
The Kentucky bluegrass is going to produce more OM. We have seen that over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my belief that tweaking the model that's over in Europe
Yeah.
to a less aggressive but more frequent renovation strategy,
Yeah.
I think that's going to play very well with the Kentucky bluegrass.
And I think that's really cool because that's something that you don't see people pushing the envelope on, you know? And I bringing up Dr. Rogers and Dr. Sorokin with the FIFA stuff. I think that's one of the big things they're looking at is what you have going on here for those indoor venues, you know? How is it going to perform? How is it going to hold up? Because obviously with foot traffic, bluegrass is way better than ryegrass, but at the same time, like you have to balance, and what you've been able to accomplish has really shown what we can do, you know, and that's something that'll be really, you know, important moving forward because hybrid pitches are the future. And I know people are nervous about it. People are concerned about it. It's just from what I've seen in the conversations I've had with Dr. Sorokin, even guys like Nick Pappas and whatnot, there's just so many things about it that we, and you obviously on the forefront, are seeing the benefits of. What has it been like sort of being that, again, pioneer in our industry to figure out how that's going to work for you and your field?
Yeah, I guess it's just, I don't think much more of it than just
Gotcha.
being it just matter of fact. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm pioneering anything per se. It's just like I have such a passion to develop a blueprint.
Yeah.
If another colleague, you know, wants to wade in the shallow end, you know, with us, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
instead of jumping off some people might think like going hybrid is jumping off the deep
No,
end.
I got you.
But after I said this earlier, once you get 90% there,
Mm-hmm.
you're really going into the pool in the shallow end.
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
You know, and going slow with it and strategic. But it's really just like, again, intellectual stimulation.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to go like full circle, but it's like this identifying the problem,
Mhm.
and then like I see your soundboard over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is like, I have analogies up,
Yeah, yeah.
but like all these like these buttons and these toggles that you have to adjust sound, to adjust the treble, the bass, whatever, and you can fill in the blank. But like that's what we're doing, and that's what gives me the intellectual stimulation is adjusting those knobs so that like your objective is to have the best sound quality, right?
Absolutely.
And not when you go to another do another podcast, set up the microphones, you might be in a different room.
Yeah.
Those toggles probably don't look exactly the same.
You're exactly right.
And that's what it's about. Now,
I love that.
being very specific with this hybrid thing is like, wow, we get a chance to really kind of like figure this out instead of a copy and paste.
Yeah.
And that's what I think as well, is having a large amount of appreciation for being in that position of figuring it out.
For sure. That's so awesome, because that's how you change the game. I mean, honestly, and this is what I love about these conversations, because no one's ever said anything, stimulating intelligence when it comes to a person. Like, you don't look at it that way when you're obviously looking that way. When people are in that space, they don't really see it that way. But by provoking thoughts and everything that goes into it, like, you're making this job so much better for your guys and so much better for the people that you're working for, having them be a part of the process, understanding why we're doing certain things the way that you're doing. It's incredible. And that's where, one of your assistants moves on and he takes that to the next site. That's what's so cool. And again, like you said, like, not seeing yourself as a mentor, but in that way that you're being the best mentor humanly possible with that, because people don't look at it like that. They say, I am the leader. This is how it's going to happen. And really, it doesn't lend a hand to developing that next generation, developing the next group. What you're doing here is going to change the MLS moving forward in ways that we don't understand, because like you were saying, Tanner, coming from all the different places that he was able to take away from, Applefeller, I don't know, Salt Lake, I apologize, but all those guys that he learned under. And from what I've followed, he's had a very crazy season at is it Colorado Rapids? Is that right? He's had a crazy season when it comes to the start and everything going into it, and he's done a phenomenal job. And that's come from the people that he has worked with and understood and was stimulated intelligently based off of what you're doing. So, like, that's something that's so cool. And I can't thank you enough for that, because that's what goes back to my kids. And you're just like, wow, that makes sense. Like, this is stuff I always go back to the, Mr. Miller, I'm not going to math class. I'm not going to ever use it again. What you're doing is pretty much what I try to get them to understand, is like, everything you're doing in all those classes is relevant to this industry. You just don't see it. And with the math, the English, all the different things that you obviously thought the same thing when we were children. You're like, I'm going to math again. Here we go. Calculus, I will say, you have nothing to do with anything unless you're an engineer or something. But being able to show that the work you're doing matters, and the work that you've done developing all of these different practices and everything is just truly incredible. So I can't thank you enough for that. Something that I always like to talk about, because it's important to my students and the people out there to hear, is what has been sort of your driving force, your motivation. Obviously, when it comes to having something new, figuring out, trying to be ahead of the game when it comes to being able to have a hybrid pitch or other things like that. What motivates you to come to work every single day? Obviously, coming back from Alaska and everything, coming in today, which again, I wouldn't have been able to do. What motivates you to do that? Like, what is it that drives you?
When you don't have any other data points, it is kind of tough to answer that question. And it's not to say I don't have any other data points. Because I will say, if you're passionate about something and you don't know anything else, you just do it because you like it or love it.
Yeah.
AKA you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
I worked in corporate America for just a short period of time. My dad said he wasn't going to pay for any college unless I went to the business school. Supposed to get an internship somewhere. I got an internship at my freshman, sophomore, and part of my junior year.
Gotcha.
Long story short, it was one data point for me that I knew that I didn't care for. Had nothing to do with the company.
Yeah.
Just when that alarm clock goes off, essentially every day, are you happy? And the alarm clock goes off today, yesterday, tomorrow. I can say 100% that I'm happy, and that's it makes me feel happy to be able to say that.
Yeah.
But it also pulls at the heartstrings a little bit because I know that there are people in this world that aren't having the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to be on this side of the fence.
Absolutely. And that means so much to, again, a young kid who's just trying to figure out this crazy world that we live in. You know, it's hard to, you know, take that step into something that's new and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's coming your way. So truly that means more than you will ever know, you know, to so many people that are listening. And it's something that again, even myself, people like, why are you a teacher? It's like, you're crazy. Like, kids are insane. They're doing like TikTok and all the absurd stuff that everybody's like, but being able to, you know, understand that kids struggle and kids are misrepresented by different groups, whether that's parents, teachers, or whoever, being able to, you know, show my kids that this is something that you can be happy about. You can enjoy your life. You know, it's something that mine was rooted in sports. You know, I just want to stay in sports when I started. And I was in a similar situation. My dad said, you're going here for baseball. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going because I can't afford college, you know? So I was lucky enough to be able to transfer for turf, but it was my way of staying in sports and being able to teach what just, you know, like 1% of what you guys do, but be able to teach and, you know, manage my fields. Like, that's something that I would never give up, you know? It's just, and that's incredible to hear.
I think one thing that I'd add to that, kids and growth and understanding like where their passion might lie is really helping them to believe that they are in control of their decisions, and that you know they might naturally look for someone to like make the decision for them.
Yeah.
But I think that in my opinion would be a disservice. What I'm trying to get at is if one has and believes that they have control of their decisions, one, they're more empowered, but two, if they find themselves in an unfavorable position, just knowing that you have the control to make a decision to get out of that is incredible feeling.
Yeah.
It absolutely is, you know. And I honestly don't think it just stops at kids, but
no, for sure.
But they're obviously very, very important because they're going to be running the country, but making
major decisions. Yeah,
right. But it applies to all of us, I think, as far as you know, not when that alarm clock goes off. If you find yourself not happy, and I think I know I've said this other staff members. If you're not happy when the alarm clock goes off, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just know that you have the power to change that.
Yeah. And that's huge for, again, someone who is in a position of, you know, being a boss and being in charge. And it sounds like, again, you don't approach it like that, obviously, but having someone advocate for you to realize that that's a real thing. Like, you can say no if you need to. Like, this isn't about what's supposed to happen. It's about what you need to happen so that A, your mental health is in a good place. B, you're happy in general, you know, you're making strides in your life that you want to make, you know? So, and I think that's so critical, you know, to just everything. And, it's funny. Have you ever seen the show Ted Lasso?
Yep.
It's literally everything about this is just, it's one of my favorite shows. Everything that he does is just perfect. The way he, you know, hits the nail on the head every single time he talks. It's like, wait a second.
Very well written.
Like, what? was like, we're 3 seasons in and we don't know how you keep doing it. So no, it's definitely something that I love about it. I do want to talk about Alaska a little bit, a little off topic. Obviously, the pressures and the time and the energy that goes into this job, being able to get away. What was that like again? And how was the trip? I do want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the trip was amazing. And I don't even know because I haven't totally.
It hasn't processed yet.
Yeah.
No, I got you.
Yeah. But I think I was saying earlier, it's just, there's so much. There's so much in this area of our country. I guess I can say that.
Yeah. It is part of this one.
Yeah. Right. And, yeah, there's just so much nature up there. Really, really good experience. This is the first time I've taken a trip in June.
That's awesome.
In my entire career.
That's incredible.
Now, there's some specifics that played a role into that, and not. I'm not the kind of guy who's like, no, I'm a grounds manager. I'm a sports surf manager. I cannot take trips in the summer. Blah, blah, blah.
I got you.
No, but. We happened to have a break. We had a match in early June. We scheduled our mini renovation. That was on a Saturday. We scheduled our mini renovation starting on Sunday. Went 3 or 4 days. We wrapped that up, cleaned it all up, and then I started my vacation. And we don't have another home match or outside event until the 28th.
That's incredible.
So it was.
I don't think that's possible, but that's incredible.
Yeah. like
you were probably like, do I book it? Is there something?
Yeah. But also, like, my wife and I were talking about this on the trip. Like, I talked about the schedule.
Yeah.
Does that really matter? Does that really matter? And I'm kind of speaking to all the listeners out there too. Does that really matter? Do you allow that to dictate that your personal schedule with your loved ones? And I would hope that the answer is no. That you have built up your team in a fashion that allows you to be nimble and flexible and not allow the schedule to dictate. So that's my little bit on that.
100%. And that's again, it lends to the leadership and what you've developed here, because it's hard for a lot of guys to just let go. You have your micromanagers, you have your people that are like, I need to be in the building at all times. I trust my staff, but I need to be in the building. Like it's hard to let go. So again, more power to the people that are listening to hear about that, because that's something that they do need to hear. It's I think the word that a lot of us use is chaos, organized chaos, I should say. But like, being able to take a step back away from it all, it's so necessary, and so needed. But that's incredible. Anything fun about Alaska you want to share that maybe people will be like, you know what, I want to go up there too?
Glacier Bay. The glaciers.
Yeah.
Experiencing those things, and recreating right around those areas was incredible. And then just the other thing about Southeast Alaska, which was where I was at.
Yeah.
Just like the raw nature, the unabated nature up there, the bears, the fish, the salmon.
Yeah.
It just it's there's not a lot of places in the world where you can go where it's just untouched.
Yeah.
If you were to take a bushwhack or something like that, you might be walking through an area that has never been walked on before.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it might have been walked on, but it might have been people thousands of years
ago. Yeah. That's so cool. And we can get into that forever, but I do wrap it up on something for my kids. It's something that I think is so critical for them to hear is like, for you, what would be your best words of advice for them, taking that first step, maybe something that you wish you knew when you first started in this industry, before getting into golf, getting into sports fields. What is one thing that would help them understand sort of those first steps into the industry, and making those connections and understanding that this is what you're sort of getting into when it comes to sports field management and turf grass management as a whole?
That's a really, really good question. I think that with respect to your kids, know that the information that you have collected, studied, maybe spent some time researching, that from a knowledge standpoint, you are the expert in the room. Don't let anyone tell you different. Yes, you're going to need experience to evolve, but you are the smartest person in the room.
I love that. And it's honestly what's hard is like not understanding like at that young of an age, there are so many things that you decide that have such a large impact on the future and where you're going. So that's incredible.
Us old guys, I can say that because I whatnot, but
you're not old. It's fine.
Us old guys we've probably forgotten over half of what we learned in school.
I would agree with that, and I'm still in it.
so that's why I reiterate the fact, like it's a little bit metaphorical in a way, but also very true and real because they're in it. They are studying the information. It's all around them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's fresh. So, they for sure, without a doubt, if one of your students came in the room right now, I would argue that they are probably the smartest kid in the room or person in the room.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for letting us come today and see this incredible facility and everything. So I'm excited about the week. Anything you're excited about for the week?
Well, this Toro Leadership Academy, right?
Yeah.
That's you and I kind of joked about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's an extensive itinerary. So
I can pull that out real quick.
Yeah. So no, I'm looking forward to interacting with colleagues that are there. I'm also really looking forward to, this whole, we're in the age of social media, right? I'm talking to a person who's doing podcasts right now. So what's great about it though is that you're a conduit to share some of this information that we experienced this week with Toro.
Absolutely. Super excited. So thank you again for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
The Toro company is known for innovation. For example, the Reelmaster 5010H improves performance and productivity. The industry's first and only reel mower with a true hybrid drive system. Save up to 20% on fuel use while also lowering costs and lowering the vehicle's carbon imprint. Visit Toro's website today to learn more about this revolutionary mower and discover the power of sustainable and efficient grounds maintenance.